Check podcasts.
The Bread and Butter Collective is a collection of hospitality professionals working together to help strengthen our industry to build strong culture, community, and sustainability.
I'm Calen McNeil.
And I'm Sam Jones. And this is the Bread and Butter Podcast.
Welcome to the Bread and Butter Podcast. How are you, Sam?
I'm really excited, Calen.
Another week. You're excited. Why are you so excited this morning? Out of all the mornings and all the worlds and all the days.
Well, it's September, and I really like September. First of all,
autumn.
autumn. Yeah, I'm a fall boy for sure. I like dressing in layers. Not that I have any today, but
No, it's
I
so
do
sunny
like
out
it.
today.
And the garden's great. And you texted me last night saying, "Hey, we're going to Cook's Camp, right?"
Yeah, Cook's
And I was
Camp.
like, so we're going to Cook's Camp. So that's why I'm so excited.
Yes, and for those that don't know, Cook's Camp is basically a culinary event, industry specific. So, cooks, chefs, servers, staff, owners, all come together, and it's been going on. I think the first one I did remotely in 2021. I want to say it was 2021 or 2020 was the first one, and because we make up, stats here. Then
Well,
say
I
2021.
remember having Belchman on the podcast the first time, and it was right around Cook's Camp.
Yeah, so that would have been 2021.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
That would have been one of our first shows we
Yeah, I
would have
think
done with him.
I think so.
Or the first season anyways. And basically what the Cook's Camp is put on by the okay, I'm gonna
Are
let
the
me describe what
participants?
it is
Oh
for
yeah,
sure. Okay.
for sure.
This is kind of their motto. A celebration of the Canadian culinary industry brought to you by Cooks for Cooks, fostering knowledge, camaraderie, and the sustainability of our profession. So it is a cooks, based group. I know the chef's table society. It's a nonprofit in British Columbia, and they're doing some really interesting things. So when we first talked to Robert, he talked about his dream of doing like a culinary library.
That's right. Yeah.
And
was he doing that on Granville Island in the old Emily Carr building?
well,
Or was that his plan originally?
Well, so
Okay.
he had a number of plans, and there's a bunch of stuff that were in the works that fell through because of COVID.
Okay.
But I was fortunate enough this past week to join him on the Mise en Place podcast that they do.
When's
which
that
is-
dropping? Do you know?
It dropped.
Oh, it's already
so
out.
it's
Okay.
Yeah, it was out. I had my business partner Joe texting me last night saying, "I'm listening to the podcast. You're making me sound like I'm mean," and I'm like, "Joe, you're not mean. You're eloquent and firm, but you're the reason why a lot of our businesses are successful because your attention to detail and you just hold firm on your belief system when it comes to hospitality." And and I also went on to talk about that. It's a long podcast. It's almost 2 hours. But it was funny because often when I'm talking about, Joe and Peter, I mean, they're my business partners. I love them, but Joe's my ex-wife. So it also,
Right.
There's a definitely
There's a dynamic.
yeah, dynamic,
Yeah.
right? So, I always speak my truth and all those things. And, it's not, there's no deliberate offense, but we like to rib each other. So.
Well, it's always nice to see people who were married and now divorced who can still remain friends because quite often that's not the case. But when
the
it
thing
is,
I don't think people
great.
realize that there's the possibility of that.
I know.
Like, it never occurs to someone to swallow your crap. I mean, in order for people to get along, one person always has to swallow a little bit more crap than the other person does, or accept things that you cannot change, and maybe make some modifications to how you're interpreting it, and how it affects you or how you let it affect you. Just like in the podcast we had with Zamian about your feelings, aren't and then your decisions. So if you let your feelings drive your decisions, you end up in court and with a $50,000 legal bill.
Yeah.
If you remove the feelings and then just try to make good decisions that make sense, then mine and Joe's divorce cost us $180, and we did it ourselves. There's no lawyer involved.
Totally amicable.
Totally amicable. I mean,
I
obviously,
mean, not as amicable as being able to stay married, maybe, but
yeah.
but when
I mean, there's a reason why you get married, and obviously, there was no infidelity. There was none of these things in our situation. Um, we've always been best friends, and that was the basis of the reason why we got married to begin with. Had a really strong friendship prior, and we continue to have a strong friendship. She's one of my best friends. She's very good friends with my current wife, and the idea that you have to just I can never talk to your ex, or you're going to break apart all of your businesses that you have together, or sell your properties, or whatever you've got going on. It's a little bit crazy to think that there's another path, and it actually takes a lot of maturity, I think, and a lot of personal introspection and growth through that process. But put work in there, because all that is you,
it's
right? It
just
doesn't cost you
improving
any money.
too.
Yeah.
Whereas paying an attorney at a divorce court
Well, and
doesn't
then
really improve you.
no, and then you spend how much animosity and buildup you have in all of that noise. And I just put it out there that it's possible. I've done it, maintained business relationships, and we got divorced we first separated in 2010, and then it was 2020. No, it might have been 2011, the summer of 2011, and I think we got divorced officially in probably 2016 or something.
Okay.
So it's been almost a decade that we've been divorced, but we have been together for 14 years. And like I said, she's one of my best friends. She's my business partner in all of the businesses that we do in the food industry. And yeah, so I did the podcast there.
Yeah.
So, and when I went there, because I didn't know what to expect, because Robert's been asking me to go on his podcast for a little while, especially when we're talking about Cook's Camp. And so I just made a point. I was going to see a friend that it's my childhood, my teenage girlfriend at the time, her mother. Her and I became very good friends, and I've been friends with her ever since. So we've been friends, I think, 38 years now.
Wow,
So
that's
she's
a
come
long-lasting
down.
relationship.
Yeah, and she's
Yeah.
getting older, and I wanted to spend some time with her. And so I went over to Vancouver. We're possibly looking at maybe thinking about doing a location over there too. So there's a little bit of business to do. And then I called up Robert. He had just moved. They had just moved into this new space. So I was curious about the space. And one of the things I was most impressed with is that it was located at Bar Green Ellison. Bar Greens Ellison is basically a equipment supplier for the restaurants. They do all type of restaurant, and they do some. I think they have. I don't know if they have a home division, but yeah, they had a display center, and it's near Main Street in Vancouver downtown. I don't have the exact address on me, but they basically, and I found this out. So the idea of this culinary library. So New York has there's several culinary libraries around,
Okay.
and New York has a really good one, the New York Public Library. So there's a section all on hospitality and culinary. So there's like menus dating back over 100 and some odd years, where you could actually see these restaurants that had menus, and some of those menus were done by artists, like Picasso have, because these, and who, Andy Warhol, local,
Like,
artists.
are they making the covers of the menus?
Yeah,
or
because they would just be collaborating in the early days, right? So
young hungry artists?
yeah, artists would be like, "Hey,
need
let
a
me
place to
yeah,"
eat.
and I thought that was a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
So you encompass artistry in, the arts. So some of those menus are in this culinary library.
Didn't Picasso leave tips by drawing things on the backs of napkins?
Yes.
Or those kinds of things? Would they be included in the library?
Yeah, exactly. So there's
cool.
I've never been, but Robert was telling me about it. But that was the inspiration of trying to do the same thing in BC. So BC has a long history of culinary and food, and obviously we're so close to the sea. We have a strong farming community. We have a diverse, landscape as far as what can be grown here.
Yeah, it's a pretty temperate climate.
yeah,
you can grow
exactly,
a lot of
and
different things.
Totally.
Here.
And we've got wine country and, orchards and, things are cold. We can do ice wine. There's the climate allows us to do different things. The island has got its own ecosystem, the Fraser Valley, there's lots of rich land to grow. So, and they're inspired from there. There's a lot of awesome, amazing chefs that have come through the years and independent restaurants that have, opened and closed and thrived. And, there's ones probably from 100 years ago that inspired, ones from 80 years ago and vice versa,
They just keep passing
Yeah.
on that inspiration.
Yeah. So
Mm.
when I go there, and I don't know any of this before I show up, but I'm just like, oh, he's office at Bar Green Ellison or whatever. So I go there, and sure enough, I walk through Bar Green Ellison, and then he takes me up the stairs into this and it looks like they're just building it out, but it looks like a little library, like a mini library. So he's got bookshelves and a whole bunch of culinary books and these little, breakout rooms where you could actually go and have a little meeting and a coffee thing. So it will be, sort of the epicenter for culinary information in BC. So I was super excited. And the first podcast that he did there was the one with me and him.
Oh wow.
Right. So
you're the first one.
We're right in the library. So thinking about what the potential that could be. So imagine restaurateurs and chefs that are coming up and they've got a destination where they can go and do some research on, what did other chefs before me or, current chefs, what are they working with ingredients and, how do they find the farms that are producing these types of products and, all of that will be curated at the library.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So the possibility of it is pretty cool. And sorry.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say, I love old menus. I've got one. I only have one menu, but it's from Cassis.
Oh yes,
yeah.
I love
with like the canvas cover with the oil painting on the canvas cover, and I got one when John packed it in.
Yeah, John Hall. That's the thing, and I think about having Greg Hayes on our podcast and him being involved at Herald Street Cafe initially, and then Brasserie L'Ecole. Or no, sorry, not Brasserie L'Ecole, Cafe Brio. And then you've got these classic sort of Victoria-based restaurants. How cool it would be to have some old menus, and we've got original.
Right.
I've got an original menu on my computer from Zambries.
Really,
like one of our first menus, right? So I think some of those things would be pretty cool.
Are there still items on that menu that have carried through?
Yeah,
like most of them. You think
a lot of them? I mean, I it'd be interesting. I'd probably say 25%.
Wow, that's
you can still get. So yeah, there's things that we've always done. And there's some things that it's good to go look back at them because then you can kind of go, oh, we haven't done that for a while. I haven't tried that. Oh, that was so good. And then just kind of throw it back. So be interesting to maybe when we do our 30-year anniversary, we kind of go through and we try to do, I think we did that on our 20-year anniversary and we just had our 25th anniversary. So yeah, it's kind of cool. But so the coolest thing about that experience was the fact that, and I don't know if I'm speaking out of school. Well, I mean, this whole thing, I think he's announcing it this week about the library. So a lot of this stuff hasn't actually come out, but I think we talked about it in our podcast. So I guess things are dropping. Anyway, this podcast will come out in a
next
week.
It'll be after he
and
makes
nobody
his
will listen. I'm sure it'll be public. I imagine it's going to come out at Cook's Camp actually while we're there. So the timing of it will be good. Anyway, I might be spilling some beans here or not, but the coolest thing, and I don't know if this was a secret or not, but Bar Green Ellison basically is given the space to the Culinary Society, the Cooks. I keep getting the names of what is the Cooks? I said it. Sorry, guys. I will.
Well, there's all different kinds of associations.
Yeah, but
they're all very
association
named.
that I'm talking. I just mentioned it. It's the Culinary Society or the Cooks Society. I'm gonna find it and get it back. But they've donated. Oh, here it is. It's the Chef's Table Society.
There we go. Chef's
Table Society. So the Chef's
CTA.
Table Society, will be running the library. They'll be doing podcasts. They'll be doing some interaction. They're over the years they're going to develop it. I think they're fundraising. I'm going to make some donations to it. Just to keep it going, and once it gets launched, obviously there will have some expenses. So I think it's a very important thing for British Columbia culinary, and hopefully other provinces, and maybe some provinces have similar things, but as far as I know, this will be one of the first. But Bar Green Ellison has donated the space. They basically did a lease for a dollar a month or something, like
Wow.
nominal for like 15 years. There's a clause, obviously, like if something doesn't work, they got a 6 month notice. But basically, what it does is provides longevity and guarantee and cost certainty. So this to me is a real investment, and they actually Bar Green Ellison sponsors Cooks Camp as well. So they've been sponsor of Cooks Camp since the beginning.
That's so smart of them.
Well, I think it's good, and we talked about it because Jason, one of the head guys at Bar Green Ellison in Vancouver, was there. So I thanked him because, I think more businesses, there's an economic reason for them to do it, but it's more about the supporting of the industry, and the business is always the side effect, right? So I think it's a really good business decision to do that. Anytime you're supporting the community, I think it's a trade-off that always wins. And you've got choices with your time and money to be advertising or doing some other forms of promotion. But anytime you can collaborate with a nonprofit that is going to be laying the groundwork for the future of our industry, it's a long vision, right? And it's not an immediate payoff today, but it will be a payoff. And for me, knowing that there's the supplier that's doing that, I'm extremely loyal when it comes to that, and I really appreciate when businesses take that step. So they don't say, "What can you do for me?" They say, "What can I do for you?" And then let's figure out how it can work for me in the business. Like, it does have to be reciprocal in some aspect, but this is a big vision, and it'll be sitting in their sort of Vancouver head office. And
That's some great support they're offering, and
Yeah.
it doesn't. It surprises me, but it shouldn't, because every time I've dealt with Bar Greens, they're always
Yeah.
so friendly, and they're
Well,
very personal.
and we did the bread and butter
That's right. They're little
reusable
takeout
boxes,
containers.
containers with them. I actually have to order more.
Are you getting low?
Well, we're getting low, and there's people using it, and I think as the city of Victoria pushes this net zero, they will be kind of putting some. I know they bought some
Right.
originally. So I think they're mandating canceling single use items. Remember we got into that big battle with them because
straws and forks and
yeah,
stuff.
and that they wanted to put cleaning. You had to use reusable containers in restaurants, and our whole restaurant is compostable, so they've carved that out now. But anyway, so the reusable container that Bar Green Ellison worked with us on is a part of the Bread and Butter Collective program. So hopefully that will grow as we move forward. But what a great business. And, I recommend anybody who's looking to buy equipment or,
They've also got packaging equipment as well, don't they?
Yeah, they've got a bunch of stuff. We've bought a lot of, we opened Courtney, and then we had to upgrade some grills, and we spent a fair amount of money there, and they're amazing to deal with. And yeah, I really like them, so I can't say enough about them. And knowing that they do this for the community, that they're putting in their money where their mouth is without any, direct, this is going to produce X. They're willing to take the chance and support, and and it's not, I believe that doing that is a selfless act. Even though I know there will be and should be an economic benefit for them.
It feels good.
Yeah.
And it looks good.
Yeah.
But it feels good first, and then it looks good.
And the thing about it is, and this is kind of where I've thought from our own businesses, doing stuff to help build the community is what it's like a long term, it's like 10, 15, 20 year, you're actually supporting and doing things to help people, whether it be paying them living wages
Yeah.
or, giving them health benefits or, physically donating to organizations throughout the community. We are friendly face that will be in the trenches. And, when there's a need, we will try to figure it out. We may not always be able to do money, but we can do time, or we can just be connectors for people. And I think Bar Green Nelson, is showing that example of doing that first, and like they're not dumb. They know there will be an economic benefit down the road, but hey, if they can build community at the same time, like,
Yeah, that's great.
yeah,
That's a good move.
and when you look at the itinerary at Cook's Camp, I mean, and these are things, where they're actually helping the industry. So one of the things I talked about in the podcast was just you know, when you're a chef, you're an artist in many, many ways. So it's hard to be an artist and be a business person and be, a lawyer and an accountant and all these hats you have to wear, as you know.
Yeah.
In your business, it's any business is the same. Whether I mean, if you're an accountant, you're running a business. If you're a doctor, a GP, you're running a business in many cases. But you may be smart and you may have a degree in, accounting or a medical degree, but business is a different beast.
My good friend Chris Paul, he's a pretty well known artist
Yeah,
around
Chris
town.
Paul. We've got
and
art at Zambres.
yeah,
Chris
yeah,
Paul,
you do. Yeah, you've actually got a Peter Jones hanging right under a Chris Paul.
Oh yeah,
which I love
I
because
actually have something for you. Peter bought some. Your son bought some art in France.
oh,
And then he ran out of room to bring it back.
oh, you know what? Those are his paintings, I'm sure.
Oh, they're his? He did them.
painted. He painted his way around Europe.
Oh my
for a
god!
couple
Oh,
months.
I had no idea. So I brought their
Oh.
little. Oh my god! I
Yeah,
got
yeah,
them.
those are
Yeah, I've
his.
got them in the back of my car.
Oh my
Let me give
God.
them to you today. He'll be happy.
He'll be thrilled.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, so Chris Paul we've been talking about art and business for decades, he and I. And I always remember he always says, to be a successful artist, you have to do 90% of your day should be about the business of your art. And then that frees you up to be creative in that 10% of the time you have left to create the actual art. Because if not, you're worried about paying rent, you're worried about your bills, you're worried about what's
that
going on,
stress
what
kind
you're
of
not
stifles
doing.
your creativity.
Yeah. So as a cook,
Yeah.
it just kind of struck me as close to the heart when you were saying cooks are artists trying to get by, right? And it's so true, and they can be, that's a real creative outlet for them. But there's other things to think about as well, like take care of yourself, take care of your mental well-being, take care of your finances. Even if you're not the owner, you still have to save. And there's so many things that allow you to continue to be a free creative artist, even as a cook, right?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And you want to put yourself in the best environment to be successful, but also the more creative, the most creative you can be, and I think that that creativity piece, it's a balance. And from the business standpoint, because I'm not a creative in the cooking area, even though my cooking has gotten better by being in the restaurant business.
Oh, I'm sure.
By osmosis. I often stand in the way of that creativity because of the finances, and it's like, okay, well, this item versus that item, this menu price, what is the contribution? How much money is it contributing to the bottom line to pay our bills? And those decisions shouldn't come at all into the mind of a creative chef, right? Because it's that balance of trying to preserve the creativity and the artistry of it, where they're making music or magic with their ingredients so that it bursts in your mouth, and you have all these flavors that come out and all this stuff. And then along comes this business guy's like, that doesn't pay the bills. We can get an extra 50 cents margin.
Well, that it's true, but a different way to think about that maybe is like kids in a sandbox, right? If you give them give them their parameters, like you can't go outside the sandbox, they're gonna feel kind of comfortable because
Yeah.
they have their boundaries.
Yeah, that's
And they
actually
know
true.
they can do
Yeah.
anything they want
Yeah.
within those boundaries.
Yeah.
And it's the same kind of thing when you put financial restrictions on what someone can do.
Yeah.
Sometimes that actually builds or helps build creativity.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's where giving the person the freedom to do what they want within, I think that that's a great analogy, the sandbox analogy. Try to give them the fence posts. You can do anything you want in this, as long as you meet. And that's actually a challenge to the artists as well.
Yeah,
It's like, okay,
absolutely.
I know
It also makes them feel secure that they're not going to go out of the boundaries and make their boss pissed off
Yeah.
or do something wrong.
Yeah.
You
Or
know,
not do what's in the best interest of survivability.
right.
Because you could be the greatest chef, the greatest artistry, but if you if you don't have the way to get that out there, if you can't pay the bills of your brick and mortar restaurant, doesn't matter how creative you are, like you're not going to be in business.
Yeah.
And I think that is, though that's the balance, in any business, is to match whatever the artistry is. I mean, in your business, the artistry is the roasting, the coffee, the purity of the process of what you're actually doing. And, you then try to marry that with good business philosophy in order to, grow and provide a living. And I guess the other thing too is like how, the expectations, like how much money do you need to make? What are you really trying to do? And I think part of the thing that people get into this, I know I do, is this: what does success look like? Like, is it just how much money's in your bank account? And then I would venture to say 90% of the people that are in this industry would be unsuccessful, by that measure.
By that measure, yeah.
But I propose the measurement should be something way different and not monetary, or maybe monetary is 10% of it, and 90% of it is all these other things that what you're doing to the community, and, the importance of the platform you're creating for people to have all these magical moments. It's really family building, friend building.
Yeah, you've got your profits or your money
Yeah.
success, but that's tangible. It's the
Yeah.
untangible things
Yeah.
that really add to the quality of life.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of have to have both. You can't have no money and expect
No.
to do what you want.
But if you've been, if I look at business that's been around, like our business has been around, your business has been around for decades now, and I know it's hard to hear.
it's the gray and the beard. There's
I
a
was
gray
at the
one.
hairdresser yesterday, and she's like, "Oh, let me get those hairs on your eyebrows, and they're all gray." And she said, "They're gray." I'm like, "Yeah, because I'm old, right?" But you reach that point where you're like, "Okay, I'm now old."
Old,
Yeah.
big, spiky, fluffy white eyebrows.
Yeah, exactly. But speaking to the point of what success looks like and what it mean, like I think to be doing what we've been doing and supporting ourselves, and I think everybody thinks people in our business that own businesses and whatever, like we're rolling in money and we do it because we have money and we're making a bunch of money and all that stuff, and it couldn't be further from the truth. But I think from a life enrichment perspective, like we're the billionaires of BC, because I maybe not billionaires, maybe multi-million, maybe we're worth
Super
half a million.
comfortable.
Super comfortable.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think, I don't know about you, but I can imagine, knowing you, that how much pride you've got in what you've done and what you do, and the professionalism, the quality, the integrity, all those things are what's way more important than money.
Yeah, those are my
Yeah.
successes.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, if you think back going through history, those are the attributes. There's always been this battle with the haves and the have-nots, but a lot of people, all they had was their word. All they ever had was their integrity and their effort. So labor and then skill, and then that was what they shopped around and what they used as currency.
Right.
The barters, there's a whole bunch of barter systems, going out, and people are, well, I'll do this, I'll do that, and trading, and so your word was super important. So I'd like to think that the focus for people like us should be that, because then it takes some pressure off, like these aspirations. Oh, I want to be this. But I mean, so many people in our industry, I think, would be richer doing other things from a monetary standpoint, but nowhere near as rich from the soul standpoint.
I would be richer if I was a barista at my own cafe.
Yeah, so
but
many times. Yes, yes.
but
If you
I
look at
wouldn't
your
have
hourly
the
rate,
I wouldn't have any sense of satisfaction that of the creation and
totally.
the longevity of the memories I've created
Yes.
for my customers and
Yeah,
my
think
employees.
about that.
And,
So many firsts happened in your coffee shops.
right,
know?
yeah, people met, get
Yes,
married.
yes. First dates, first time they had a coffee that was amazing,
That they can drink black.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And they know that when they come there, they're going to be cared for by you and your team,
Yeah.
And I think that is, it's infinite value,
It is, and I take real pride in that. I mean, I'm not interested in too many monetary things. I mean, I like creature comforts,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I don't ever aspire to be rich. What I aspire to be is happy.
100%. And I think that's where you're going to be way more successful if you remove the money aspiration out of it, like from a goal, like the end goal
Yeah.
point. Like, what does success look like? Success looks like me living, on oceanfront property with, $1 million in the bank. That is a very shallow aspiration. It's going to be hard for you to achieve that without the component that's the most important, which is the passion, the expertise, creating a value for your customers, but also for your team that is working there, and building that. Like, and if you can do it and support yourself,
Yeah.
that to me is the perfect, because the part of the creativity and what the execution is like I said, 90% of it or more. And the fact that I can support myself, that should be successful. Like, I look at, me, Joe, and Peter. We've been in a partnership for 27 years, and, we've all lived a comfortable life. We've got a good lifestyle. We're not
Good
rich,
vacations.
yeah. But we're so rich when it comes to what we've gotten out of our business. And think of like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that work for us.
And all those
And come through.
connections
Yeah.
and all the connections of all your customers.
Yeah.
I mean, you've had customers coming in since day one
Yeah.
who still come in.
Still come in. And their children's, and now their children's children,
Yeah.
and that is, that's pretty overwhelming when you think about it. And then how do you put a value on that? Like, it's priceless,
Yeah.
and
that's the value. Right in your heart.
It's right in the heart. So
absolutely.
I think, in this day and age of, all these social media influencers and, oh, look at me, and, everybody's trying to get clout, and they're like, oh, I do this, I do that, I blah, blah, blah. And it's all just BS. Right. And it's so shallow.
It is. Well, like the other day when Marianne was asking what our favorite parts about doing business downtown was, and like every response was the people, like our customers. There wasn't really much else to say. I mean, it's beautiful downtown. You get nice views depending on where you are. But I mean, why have a business downtown?
It's about people.
For the people.
Yeah,
You
100%.
get such a diverse mix of people who all have something to offer you.
Yeah.
As well as you have something to offer them.
Yeah,
Right?
that's the exchange.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And as long as there's an exchange of something, somebody's getting something in return. And I think, removing the monetary component of it, or the monetary focus, I guess.
Yeah.
Because I guess, I mean, like you said, you have to make money. You got to pay your bills, and you got to figure that out. But I think if you focus first on the passion piece, and this is, Peter's going to laugh at me, because for years I'm like, you can't sell that because it doesn't make us money. Why are you taking that off the menu? But it's the highest contributor. All this language, right? But it starts with the passion, and as long as you maintain that passion, because you can, the finances can beat out the love, like, and it'll always, kind of like be a bulldozer that'll just clear it.
Just like stomp on your heart.
Well, but you look at capitalism in general.
Yeah.
Right? Capitalism doesn't have feelings, and then you're seeing, late stage. We're in late stage capitalism.
Yeah.
So this whole
Is
system
greed a feeling? Because it does create some greed. Like I picture.
No, but I can't even imagine greed. Like, like that to me, I don't connect. Do you connect with greed, the term greed?
No, but I connect it to capitalism.
Yeah.
Sorry,
No, I know, but I'm
connect that
yeah,
the
but I'm
idea
kind of
of
curious
the
about
upper.
that word and that idea. Like it's more greed is more an action than a feeling, I think. But is greed a feeling? I don't know. Like what do people like the people that hoard? And we've all know people in our lives that, I've I know people that are just so penny pinching and they've got more money than anybody. But would they be greedy or
Well,
what do
that
they
might not be greed. That might be their own personal comfort level,
yeah,
right? Like they're
preservation or something
not
or worried
comfortable.
about it. But again, when you think of that, it's related to money and it's related
Mm,
to what you have, but it doesn't really have a soul. It doesn't have like a heartbeat.
no.
It's very lonely. It doesn't, this isn't something you're sharing because you can't share it,
Yeah.
right? So all of those things are, the opposite of what I view as being success. But this is the society that every time we look at anything, we're comparing ourselves to so and so, and a lot of it is financially based, and obviously with escalation of costs of everything, finances are front and center. So
Yeah.
but then it takes you back to other things we've talked about over the years is how happy people are with nothing, our perception of nothing.
Right.
But if you look at the majority of people in those poor countries don't really have any debt, you know, and yeah, you know, we can get into the conversation. They don't really have much food and all those things as well. But, you know, the idea that people living in North America or Europe in some cases, North America specifically, maybe even US more so, because I feel like because of our social safety net and how we operate in Canada, we're, and I think it's statistically proven we're much happier than people south of the border. And they're far more capitalist down there and predatory, and money can buy you anything you want there, and if
Right.
you've got it, you're going to have it. But money will never buy happiness. It'll never buy soul or those experiences. Money can buy experiences. Like I can go buy a yacht and be by myself. I can even invite a bunch of people that I know that will come on that yacht with me. But how many people are there because I bought the yacht, and how many
Yeah.
people are there because of who I am? And then how much better is having just a nice dinner that you've cooked yourself, that maybe you've grew out of your garden in the backyard and your friends, and you're just breaking bread like
Yeah.
that to me. And that is like the financial cheapest thing you could do and get the max enjoyment out of.
I,
You know?
I brought my head chef a beautiful tomato right off the vine that I picked this morning, and he's
Oh,
like, "Oh, you want me to cut that up into something?" I'm like, "No, just eat it. It's
yeah,
delicious."
yeah, yeah.
And it was great. I mean, he
Yeah.
thoroughly love it, and you know what? I love giving it to him because I grew it from seed. I
Oh my
watched it develop,
goodness.
and it's the same thing
And
with the cook,
I'm
right?
looking.
You're I've got tomatoes for
I'm
you
just kidding.
little,
I'm just
in a little
kidding.
bit. I got some special ones. I'm softening them up.
Oh.
But it's the same thing with a cook or a chef, right?
Yeah.
They've created something from nothing,
Yeah.
and they put their heart into it.
Yeah.
And then when they give it to you, that they don't just want that to be a ticket number. If they
Yeah.
can, they want to see you take your first bite, right?
100%.
And make sure that there's a smile on
Yes.
your face.
Yeah.
And
Like it's that care right from, the cutting of the ingredients to the putting it all together in the pan and then plating it and then watching the bites. And a lot of times the chefs will be like, what they think? Did they like it? What
yeah,
they want to know feedback from the server right away. Like, did you see that? And I'm like, no, I didn't see. I mean, especially new dishes,
right.
and especially if they're, it's the first time they've done a dish in the kitchen. Maybe they're a sous chef or a line cook or something that is given the opportunity to put something on the menu for a special, and and that connection, like that is like immediate gratification for your work, your
Mm.
efforts, and you just feel good. It just gives you a feeling, like you get a big check. That feeling is like, and then it's gone, and then that feeling is gone, and you're chasing this next big check or whatever. Like it's so soulless,
Yeah, but the gratitude is where it's at, right?
100%. Like seeing the appreciation and
from
seeing,
from from both ends, and
yeah,
that's maybe one of the reasons hospitality really draws me in,
Yeah.
because it's a reciprocal respect and appreciation.
Yeah.
Or it should be. And when it's not, it doesn't feel very, very good when it's not reciprocal.
No.
But, that's why I think most people get into hospitality. People who are creative, who want that out of their lives. This is a good field to get into, to get that instantaneous response from
Oh my!
people
You don't have to
and
wait.
instant
Yeah.
gratification.
Yeah.
And that gratitude that you get from your
Yeah.
customer should be equally matched by the gratitude you feel by giving it to them too.
Oh,
Right?
100%.
And when you have that, that's
Well, then
success.
that's when you know the motivations are pure.
Yeah.
Because it's not about the money. It's not about the soulless objective of having X dollars at the end of the day. And you look at some of these businesses, and I actually talked on Robert Belchin's podcast about a woman in Vancouver, and we're talking about exit strategies, and just more of the fundamental business kind of component of it is when you're starting a business, have a plan that takes you right to the end, and then also have an exit.
Yeah.
Like, what does an exit look like at whatever period down the road, so that you're at least thinking about that, and then you're actually checking your business plan as you're updating it on what that exit is. And maybe the exit looks different over time, but you're changing that. But you always see what it is. And one of the reasons in this particular case is this woman's had this restaurant for 10 years. She doesn't even know what an exit looks like. She's basically on the tools, she's chefing, and she's on the oven, and she's getting older. So it's now she's in her 60s, and and then when Robert asked her what's your exit plan, she didn't have an exit plan, and she'd been doing it 10 years. And
Oh, that's not very long.
no, but for her, I think a decade doing. I mean, it's interesting for us because we've been doing what we've been doing for over 2 decades.
Yeah.
For her to be doing it a decade, that's a long time. That's a successful restaurant.
Okay.
know?
Yeah.
And I think over 10 years, like any restaurant that's been around over 5 years is a raging success because of how hard it is to survive that. To do 10 years I remember when we had our first 10-year anniversary, it was like, wow, it was awesome.
It's a milestone.
Yeah, it's a milestone. So to think that she's thinking, okay, well, what does my exit look like? I think you should always have, and that the business side of it is the passion side of it is she's focused her head down and she's just doing what she's doing. And that's fine. But there's realities in life, when we do age and we do slow down, we have to be thinking, or we should be thinking a little bit about what that looks like in order to, get the most out of what we've been doing.
Well, and at 60, you do want to have an exit strategy, because you don't want to be thinking yourself in the next 15 years still doing the same thing necessarily, because you may physically just not be able to do it, right?
Yeah, and then making sure that you're looking at what that looks like, and maybe you're mentoring some staff. And I think for us at Zambries, we're kind of at. I mean, I'm going to be 55 in a few months. Joe is in her 60s. Pete's getting close to 60. So, for the most part, we're not on tools, so to speak. Joe still works in lunches, and Peter does, some services here and there, and he'll cook for some private dinners and whatnot. But it's hard to do it when you're, you've been doing it for as long as you've been doing it, but when you get older, you're on your feet. It's a tough biz.
Well, you really have to take care of yourself, and it's too late if you already hurt. Well, it's not too late, but you should have been doing it before if you hurt. Now,
we
right?
should all be stretching and exercising.
Well, I remember Peter years ago, Peter Zambry, talking about doing his functional exercises. So he could go to the under cooler, like the under bar cooler, and open it up and get stuff out of it. And so I'm like, what do those exercises look like? He's like, it looks like bending over and opening the drawer. It's like, okay. But doing those purposefully and learning the motions and keeping yourself
making sure your body
and your
is ready
brain
for that too.
and your soul, you got to keep everything healthy if you want to get beyond your 50s, 60s in this
I
business.
think part of it is you think about, I'm in it, like I'm in 5 years, I'll be 60. And I'm like, I hurt, my hips hurt, it's almost like it's too late to some degree, but it's creating new habits, which is the hard part, right?
It's the bionic hip.
Yeah.
It's coming.
Oh,
So if you're a professional server, you don't own you work
Yeah.
for high-end restaurants, and you're a professional server your whole life. What kind of exit strategy do you think a server should be thinking about, and how long should they be thinking about? Like, if you're a 55-year-old server who's been doing it your whole life and you're working at the top of your profession, should you be putting away RSPs? Should you have bought a house? Should you have done like what would an exit strategy be? I guess retirement and old age pension, but that doesn't feel like the same thing. It doesn't
yeah. I
feel
guess the financial literacy component of it is important, and I think the issue that we've got. So, considering we're such a capitalist society, there's very little prep done in schools at any level for financial literacy,
yeah.
and which is like, think about the damage that is done, you know, as people are growing up, and just not having. I mean, you're a person who has young kids, and you do not have, if you had no financial sort of training, or not even training, just education. So balancing checkbooks and cash flow, and what is it like investing and things like that, and how do you invest, and just that whole base level literacy of financial literacy. um, it really sets you back. And I think you've got your personal financial literacy, and you've got the business literacy, but both of them are the same. Like I always say when I'm talking to people about the financial end of it, well, just imagine, you've got your paycheck. So talking to the server, that's a professional server, they bring in that. They've also got some income coming in from off the books, which is the tip portion of it.
Right.
So what are you doing with those cash tips? Those cash tips arguably are worth more than your paycheck because they're not taxed, or maybe a portion. Siri's listening. Maybe a portion of them are taxed now, but you've got some liquidity there. So what are you doing? Are you just spending it? Are you thinking about? Because the other thing too is, like, people, we don't live forever, right? So, and our ability to perform at the rate we're performing when we're young, it diminishes. And I don't know, maybe it's 2 or 3% a year, right, throughout your career. And by the end of it, you're functioning at 30% of your, starting capacity. I guess you've got the experience,
man.
which helps.
I never really think about that.
Yeah. So
Diminishing returns on ability.
yes, exactly. So having that, and I'm speaking to myself, and I have, I didn't get my financial literacy until college, but I really didn't, maybe a decade after that, just by, the School of Hard Knocks, lessons learned, teachings, listening, reading, that kind of stuff. But how much better would I be off if they had, why am I learning? I don't know how to, I guess, cooking school, like, they have some stuff like culinary stuff, and now they're incorporating more trades in high schools, as far as I've been told, which I think is great.
Some
But
practical skills.
yeah, but as long as with the trade, teach some business, right? Because a lot of these people, and especially the future of where things are going, it's not like the mill is open where your dad has worked for 3 generations, or your parents have worked for 3 generations. And when I grew up, the natural thing is, well, we've got the mill, we've got forestry, we've got all these
You
industries.
got lots of options for
Yeah,
your future, but
yeah.
they're all within these confines of our industries.
Yeah, and now those jobs aren't there.
Yeah.
And so you're like, okay, well, let me be an influencer. What? That was never a job before, but it's a job now. And then you basically are jump on this loop of, but you don't have any financial. Most people don't have that financial education or schooling, or even base level, which they really should be doing. Like elementary school, they should be talking about it. They
Right.
should be talking about budgets and finances, and just be smarter about it. What is money? What is inflation? What is the value of
What's
a
a
dollar
tariff?
today versus what's a tariff? Well, seriously, because you get, but then you're also making better informed decision, right? When it comes to who your elected leaders are, and it starts unraveling some thought processes that are bigger than yourself, especially when you're going to be having a family. So now you've got dependents and you've got all of this stuff. So I think having some base knowledge, it's not going to be for everybody, and most people might not have a mind for it, but those that do, they'll be more successful because of it.
So why do you think the education system ignores financial literacy when they're so keen to teach our kids things that maybe they shouldn't be teaching them anyway?
Well, I think it's the same thing when it comes to, so you learn history, right? So, but not really putting the history in context, because part of history isn't just learning the history, it's seeing how they made their decisions throughout that period of time and how it relates to what's going on today,
Right.
because history repeats itself. So that's, I think people just think, oh, it's our social studies or these courses. I mean, I'm naming courses I grew up on, or law, or these, the sciences obviously are practical, because they apply, and you need to work your brain in that way. But not doing the day-to-day stuff, that everybody has to deal with. And I just think it's a huge blind spot. And I just think that it doesn't sell, but if you look at how the countries that focus on educating their people better with financial literacy have better outcomes. They have better, businesses. They have, people that have less debt. People understand debt. They understand the broader world and how certain things that happen in different countries can affect you financially, and what you need to be thinking about. I think it's just the practical, and it's no different than them not teaching trades in school too. You know, like trades is a practical thing. So now that they are, or people like, you need to become a doctor, or you need to become a professional, and it's like, well, do you? Like, why are you forcing people that might not have that mindset that way? But I think in any industry, and every person could benefit from financial literacy. Like, no question. Doesn't matter what you're doing, because it's gonna come. It's coming for you whether you like it or not. And I think I don't know, maybe it's again the people are hoarding information. Like maybe it's a subconscious thing that the rich people do. They're like, I don't want more rich people competing with me. I want all the money for myself. I don't know. Maybe they're just like, oh, let's not have this. Let's not talk about this in school. Let's not educate our people.
It kind of feels like that's a real easy answer, that one, and I kind of like it. Like I kind of lean towards that, as they just don't want kids to
No.
grow up to be competition
No.
for the small amount of money that there is in the world.
Well, and they don't want. Listen, and this just occurred to me. They don't want poor people to save money. They want poor people to spend all their money.
Yeah. That's why you get a credit card when you're
16. 100%. And they want to encourage that. Like, if there was financial literacy, you wouldn't start with a credit card, or you'd save $5,000 and put it in GIC and use that GIC to guarantee that card. Right. So you always knew you had the money there, and that GIC is actually making interest. So your goal would be to pay off that credit card every month to build up your credit rating. And even the credit rating system's screwed, because they'll just pour all this debt on you. And if you cancel your credit card, it hurts you on the credit rating score. And they've just stacked all this stuff up, but they've never given anybody the tools, or there's no, like, and maybe they are now, I don't know, because I'm not in it. But when you think about the 30 years or 40 years, like, I've been learning. So I started school in kindergarten, and I was in college, and then I'm learning constantly now. And I've had to teach myself the literacy part of it.
Right.
And, there's also all these traps of like, oh, we'll get rich quick and all this stuff. And this never happens, right? Like, there's always these anomalies that will get rich quick, but hard work and just putting one foot in front of the other, like, it's like, you hear these people that just put $100 away, right? If you put $100 away when you start doing that when you're 18, by the time you're 60, you'll have $1 million.
Yeah.
Just $100 a month. That's it. And then all of a sudden there you've done it, just like that. And it's $1,200 a year with compound interest. But at what point in your life do you hear that? Or what point in life, unless your parent is a financial planner or manager or whatever, like, you don't hear that. Or if you're because either that or you're hoarding it and you just have all this money, but you're not rich with life because you've focused on money and hoarding it instead of enjoying where you can, right? Like it's just all that because money allows you to go do things, experience things, learn things. But if you don't have the skills to not, debt is the opposite of that because that is you carry your debt around with you. It stifles you and limits you from doing stuff. And in business, part of business is managing that debt, right? And depending on what industry you're in, unless you have really high margins, you're gonna have to be leaning on more debt, right? And it doesn't necessarily is a bad thing, but you have to understand it. And if you don't, you're going to be running into problems. I think.
I guarantee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so I mean, we can rail against the education system a lot, but I think financial literacy is probably the biggest weakness that we have as a society in lack of focus on it, and because it becomes such an important part of your life in anything you do. Even teach them how to do business plans and why you do business plans because you should actually have a life plan too.
They kind of they kind of touch on that aspect in school where you have to graduate, you need to do a life program or whatever it is, and
like life skills or
like
something.
Life skills, yeah. And they touch so briefly on finances that they may as well not put it in the course. But they have so many other weird things that these kids have to do just to graduate from high school in this one course. It's not even a classroom course. It's just like homework stuff they have to do.
And it's like, why not actually give them some skills they can use?
Yeah, and make a whole course out of it. That's mandatory like math.
Yeah,
or make it one of the math courses that you take.
Yeah, well, and that's the other thing too is there is courses that could tie that in.
Yeah,
math and accounting. You need math for a lot of that stuff. So why would you not incorporate financial literacy in that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it kind of goes without saying, but
well, except it's not happening. So I guess someone's got to say it, right?
Well, and this is where you look at where we're at, and I referred to the end stage capitalism, and all this stuff gets flushed out. Then, because there'll be no choice, and I think not to freak everybody out or anybody out, but I'm a real believer that history repeats itself. And when you're just coming out of a pandemic, if you look at when the last pandemic was and then what happened as a result of that and where we are globally financially, we've never had more debt, and if you look at the amount of debt we have with where, the price of the stock market is and all of these things, like we were here once before and it was prior to the basic financial collapse of 1929, the Great Depression. So I don't know. I don't know, but I'm not going to sit here, but if it does happen, you heard it here first.
Right. I'll back you on that. I think we're in for
it's scary times.
For another financial crisis. It doesn't matter what you want to call it. But it feels like we're already falling into it.
Well, I think, in light, and it's by design. So I think, the soft landing would have probably happened under a different, U.S. presidency. And this one is deliberately creating the situation.
Well, he's just making it come to us faster.
Oh, it's and 10 times worse.
Yeah.
And then, all these people that have been hoarding money will just scoop up things at pennies on the dollar, with no regard for how it affects others, which, and they've rallied those people together to just actively go against their own interests, which has been repeated through history for centuries, is people get other people to act against their own interests,
Yeah. Oof.
And it's...
What comes after end stage capitalism? Is it fascism?
Well, fascism was what brings it on, because the fascists need the oligarchs to make it work. And the oligarchs are like, oh, I better do this. Otherwise, the fascists are going to come after me and take my money. So, and they basically just feed on each other. And then, the people, when they've got nothing, that's where are they going to go? They've got to take down the oligarchs because that's how it goes. Like, it's a cycle that repeats itself. And then you have this period of peace and, prosperity that comes from that because you've redistributed wealth. The redistribution of wealth needs to happen because you can't have all the wealth at the top. It's impossible.
Sounds very French Revolutionary.
100%.
Yeah.
Like it's happened throughout like history is, these people who think because everybody just thinks like it's never going to end. Like, what do these people who are on these yachts buying more yachts and more yachts and more yachts? And then what are they thinking when they watch the news, or what are they thinking when they look at their people in, like, I think of Bezos, like some of their like majority of their people make like a fraction of what he makes, like a fraction. And all the other people they have, like the vice presidents, the presidents, the department head, like all this stuff, their supervisor, and these people that are actually producing the goods are basically, some of them are on food stamps,
Wow.
and they can't afford to buy a house in the neighborhood they're living in, or that they can work in.
Right.
And we experienced it in our industry. Like, how many people do we have working for us that can afford to even pay the rent? Where rent should be 25%, or your living cost should be 25% of your income, and we're probably at 60%.
Right.
Of what their income is. And we have, pretty socialist ideas around wages and stuff like that.
Sure.
But imagine where your minimum wage is $7.40 in the US, and how are they expecting people to even survive?
That is
But they don't care. They don't seem to care. If you just give everybody basic income,
Well, there's more and more people talking about that, like
well, and
publicly.
AI, listen,
right?
AI is going to derail a lot of it because some scary projections are like 60% of the workforce will be displaced
Yeah.
by AI.
Did they, when AI was first looming, I'll call it, because it feels kind of scary. It's looming above us. People were talking about, oh, it's going to cancel out all these, or it's going to take over all these blue collar jobs.
Yeah.
And it might. But I think where it's really going to have an impact are the white collar jobs.
Yes. Yeah.
And that might be the start of the redistribution of the wealth, because all of a sudden it's like AI is going to take over. Lawyers, doctors, accountants, all those professions that we always hold in high esteem as like prosperous jobs.
Yeah.
They may be in trouble.
Yeah, they go the way of the dodo bird.
Yeah.
And this is where, and when you have, I'm going to call them bad actors that are basically looking out for themselves in government, and where they're actually not protecting. I mean, back in the day, and I keep going back to this example because I think it's so important. Standard Oil owned the railroads, they owned all the oil companies, and they reached a point of value that they were almost as big as the government at the time.
Right.
And we were talking like early 1900s, I guess. Maybe 1920, 1915, something.
Well, they
like
had
that,
all the
18,
rubber, all the oil,
they got all the trains and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And the Department of Justice at the time in the U.S. broke them apart, and
being BP came out of that.
Yeah, there's
Shell, all those, right?
Chevron and
Chevron.
Exxon and all those came, or their incarnations as we know them today, all came from one company, Standard Oil. The guy who owned it didn't lose anything, but it just basically created these different entities, which created more competition or the feeling of competition. But the bottom line is the intent was to look after the consumer and look after the worker, so that you didn't have these massive companies that take. Look at like Amazon, a prime example, and even Microsoft back in the day was they're threatening to break them apart because they're getting too influential, and they're putting they're mandating their products in everybody else's products, and this doesn't help consumers, and all it does is enrich a few individuals at the top. And even, look at stock buybacks. So this is one that just boils my blood. So you've got a company. I don't begrudge anybody that makes profit and whatever, but why are they? Stock buyback should be illegal. They should just be illegal, because if you're printing so much money that you can just then buy your own stock to elevate your stock to make even more money,
it's so manipulative.
Well, it is. And where does this is look at professional sports. So I think hockey has a mandate 50%, 50%. So 50% of the revenue goes to the owners, 50% of the revenue goes to the players,
Oh.
right? Something like that. And,
Okay.
if there's some hockey buffs out there, correct me if I'm wrong. But there's sports that allocate that way so that there's parity and fairness. So if you look at a company, the company's only successful because of the workers. You can have marketing minds and you can have all this kind of stuff, great. But if you don't have workers, and those workers are actually buying your product too. So it's fulfilling. So why would you not want your workers to make as much money as possible to then buy your product? If you have enough money, like billions of dollars is spent on stock buybacks that produce nothing but wealth for the rich that already own it. Think about that.
Yeah.
Where if you just put a fraction of that back to the employees, and this is one of the things that Mark Carney did recently when it came to NATO and the fact that, or yeah, NATO. And Trump was like, you guys aren't paying your fair share, blah, blah, blah. Basically, that is designed so that these countries are pressured to buy more U.S. military equipment because that will meet their 2% obligation of their GDP or whatever it is, 3%, 4%, whatever it is.
Right.
Carney, fulfilling the obligation. Plus, also, we're in a precarious spot where we actually need potentially stronger military in order to combat, a fascist, thing that's going on in the States. He took $1 billion and put it into wages. So he's upping our percent of GDP going in, but he's putting it in the hands of the people that are actually in the military that are going to be spending it, which is then going to go back into the economy rather than putting in some tank that's going to most likely, hopefully, sit there, right?
Yeah, hopefully it never
and the
shoots
money
it.
goes to the United States. So I think that is like a superb way of viewing it. So if you have a business, like these business owners should be pressured, like Jim Pattison, um, the President Choice guys, Loblaws, the McCain family, like all these guys and girls who have these monstrous corporations making billions that are literally the banks, right?
Yeah.
Royal Bank, like the amount of profit they make, like
It's ungodly.
when it just feeds the machine again because you need to make more and there's just this insatiable appetite for profit. And who's suffering? Like the people,
Yeah.
And then things happen like COVID where, wealth, some of the wealthiest people's wealth grew by 4 times. Like how many people, that make, and even like insane amount of money, 200K a year, their income didn't grow that much. What about someone who's making 50K a year?
It may have dropped.
It's probably dropped. Well, their purchasing power dropped because if they didn't own a house, now the house that they could possibly own or maybe they're saving for is even more unattainable.
Yeah.
And
if you're making $50,000 a year, maybe your job wasn't essential.
Yeah.
Maybe you didn't work.
yeah,
So
yeah.
Yeah.
And then you've got these lobbyists that are lobbying government to not fix it, not mandate. And people like you talk about taxing the billionaire, like taxation is the issue because we've not been taxing people fairly. We've been unfairly taxing, the poor and grossly undertaxing the rich, like
Yeah.
gross. And they have all these lobbyists. They just pay to have these lobbyists. So they're greasing the wheels of the halls of power to not, create rules and regulations to make more equality. And I promise you, if the people are like, well, they'll just leave. I'm like, okay, bye. Let them leave because we're going to end up with a much better society. And we're also going to be training the future generations of leaders and business owners to remember to give back and treat their employees well. And this is like the cultural shift that needs to happen. So we talk about what happens after capitalism. This is what happens after capitalism because humanism and giving back and building businesses that build from the top up, or sorry, build from the bottom up, not from the top down. It just doesn't work. It's never worked in the history. And, when people were the most prosperous was, relative to the CEOs and relative to the businesses was in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
And guess what? They had really good taxation. They had a wealth tax. They had all that stuff. And it wasn't until the late 70s and 80s, Reagan and all this, because they're like, okay, well, let's see if, and it happens over time. It doesn't happen in one blow, right? But one little rule change and this little rule, and they stack on each other, and people are scattered below, like, without any organization or any ability to share information and say, hey, wait a minute, like they're making their money on our backs.
Off
So
our
let's just
sweat.
stop,
Yeah.
right? Okay, let's stop. But what is stopping me? I mean, people would, and that's how it happens. Is you need national strikes and you need like a complete rebalance, and it's going to happen because
Well, it's starting to happen in BC. We're right now, as we're recording on September 3rd, we have a provincial employee strike going on.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that may lead to a teacher's strike, and that may lead to something else. I mean,
But what happens to just doing the right thing? What happens to making it right? And then guess what? Oh, my stock price and the shareholders revolt and all this stuff and all these names and excuses. When it's like, you know what? The value of my business is going to be 10 times greater because I'm not looking at one quarter at a time. I'm looking at a decade to 2 decades to 3 decades.
yeah.
And this is what we talk about with the investment in literacy, the investment in education and healthcare. You look at taxation, they're like, well, oh, people are going to leave or people are going to, okay, fine, leave. But you know what's going to happen for the ones that stay? They're going to be guaranteed 10, 20, 30, your kids' futures are going to be guaranteed because you've set up a structure for success for them that isn't focused on this moment now and what I can get and what I can keep. It's focused on with that investment, with the money that we're going to get from proper taxation and encouraging business owners to do the right thing and pay their people correctly throughout the chain, right? Everybody benefits from it. Like we don't need people with $1 trillion. And we've got companies that are worth over $1 trillion now, multiple companies. And we have people that are approaching $1 trillion of net worth. It's insane.
Who are not paying billions of dollars in taxes.
No, they pay a fraction at the end of the day, and people are like justifying it. And then people like you and me that are, standing up and going, not you and me in particular, but our cohorts are standing up and going, it's his right to do that. It's right to do that. Like as if it's ever like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah, it's
Like,
not his right to cheat the system.
No.
But the system needs to change so it looks like they are cheating. Because right now they're just using, as Trump likes to say, well, it's a tax loophole. Why I'd be an idiot not to use it.
But this is where the regulation.
This is where the regulation.
The adults need to come up and say, hey, this is not good for society. And there's examples of societies out there or countries out there that are way better balanced. And, most of them are in Europe.
Yeah, are they the Nordic countries? Is that what you're thinking about?
Well, I mean, they have probably some issues there as well. But I've spent a bunch of time in France recently.
Okay.
And, there's protests going every month. There's a protest of something, whether they need to protest or not. It's keeping the powers that be in check. And they make sure there's proper taxation. They've got healthcare. They've got social programs. They've got all this stuff that is a no threat to ending. And it's not to say that everything's perfect, but, if you can go and see a doctor, if you can, education is mandatory. Like you don't get to, I'm going on holiday for 3 weeks. The school is like, no, we pay for it. We also pay for post-secondary, and you also get fed at school. So think about their investment in that.
Just in people.
Just in people.
Yeah.
Imagine, I don't know what the percentages of people that go to school hungry, but I bet you it's big, like 20%.
Well, here you mean, and
like here we're in a first world country.
Yeah.
Like never mind third world countries. Like the investment in education and food programs, it's 100x, 200x return.
And you can see that in a place like France where the kids do get real food.
Yeah, they get real healthy
part
food,
of the free education.
Yeah, exactly. So it'd be interesting to see how long they've been doing it and what their outcomes are. And, like I'm sure they have rich people there too, but I bet you they're less rich than the rich in the United States. But,
But going back to our original point, they may not be as rich as those people, but they have greater they have greater satisfaction in their lives, and they are the most prosperous, perhaps ones without all the money, but
100%. Yeah.
have their health and
Yeah.
well-being.
Yeah. And I just think it's just nice to see because, seeing my friends' kids go through that, and they came from a North American system, and how much more prosperous and healthy they look and engaged, and they wouldn't go back, which says something,
Yeah,
you know.
it does.
And they go to school from 8 o'clock till 4 o'clock,
Um,
like 5 days a week, and they have their little breaks here and there and stuff like that, but they get fed there, and they're getting educated there, and it's mandatory. And if they want to go to post-secondary school or even a trade school, they can. It's free. Yeah,
Man.
it's all. There's no social barrier. Like, how many people can't afford to send their kid, or you start on a path that this person may, be a master scientist if he had the opportunity, but instead he's doing something else because of whatever reason, whether it be social outcomes or not. So if you protect and create a scenario where you're actually educating and feeding and nurturing, you're going to have way less healthcare costs when they're older. You're going to have a more financially successful, population, which is then going to create more jobs for more people, and it's investment in the future. So yeah,
It seems so simple,
it is, but
but
you know what?
let's get on
Too
it.
late. Like, all the systems are all too frayed and fraught with corruption and all that stuff. And it's not. I'm sure there's really good intended people out there, but
But they also get caught up in.
Well, of course, and
the
you're just trying to do.
system.
If you can't change it, like, how futile is it? And then all of a sudden you're you give up, or you just go, okay, well, I can make this change, so I'm going to focus on just doing that, and that's noble too, but the whole thing needs to come down. So in that part of it, I think it's going to happen anyways. There's nothing we can do. Like, the system is just going to collapse on itself, and hopefully we can pick it back up in a way that just works better for the people. Until, guess what? It doesn't again.
Yeah,
Because
in the next
over
80
time,
years.
yes, it just, the same systems create. So the people that have gone through this, the young people that will have gone through what we're going to go through in the next decade, 5 years, 6, 10 years, whatever, they're going to be the ones that are going to be the future leaders, and they're going to go never again. And guess what? Never again. It's going to last 20 years, and then it'll start unraveling. And that next generation will be like, oh, I was just a boy when that happened, and now I'm an adult, and maybe I can take a little bit more of the pie.
It's kind of interesting. I know you know all about the different cycles that the world goes through,
Yeah.
and that they're based on 80-year cycles and
Yeah.
stuff. That's based on people at the end of that cycle not being alive at the beginning of the cycle, because
Yeah.
people were dying at a
Yeah.
younger age. This cycle, by the time our kids who are going through it now, they're going to live till they're 95, 120, right? Like,
Well,
they're going to live a lot
depends
longer.
if you're in the United States, where they're
Okay, the
death
French
rate's
are going to
dropping.
live.
The French are going to live.
The French are going to
Yeah,
live longer.
The Swedish, I'm sure.
And are those kids then going to delay the inevitable until the next generation? So maybe it's going to be 100-year cycle.
Well, I think
next?
generations.
Because it's about people forget the first part of the cycle, right?
Yeah.
But if you have people who are part of that cycle now, who are going to be the leaders when they're 80, they haven't
Still
forgotten
functional
80.
because of medicine and science and
steroids and brain stem
steroids.
cells.
Robot, whatever that looks like.
AI
I mean,
implants.
it'll go, but it'll still be the same because people forget,
Eventually.
So you forget, history repeats itself because people don't focus on history. And, there's a whole bunch of historians that are just losing their mind, or people that are aware of history repeating itself and say, okay, that looks like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck. It's a duck.
Yeah.
And when you look at fascism, that's fascism. Like, there's only so many different forms of government or ruling, and there's rule books that they follow, and people are following the fascist rule book. Like, just per one, like, you can just then take what happened in prior to World War II and just photocopy it, and that's basically, they're doing the exact same thing.
It does rhyme.
Yeah,
doesn't it?
and it's like, people are like, oh, how do we find ourselves here? Or, oh, you're just overreacting. It's like, dude, like, there's people that have been talking about this for over a decade. about.
Seen
Well,
it
I mean,
coming.
longer than that
Yeah.
because this started in the 80s.
I
And people were screaming
remember
about it.
being
Yeah.
angry in the 80s
Yeah.
with my anarchy shirt
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
in the 80s.
Yeah.
Like screw you.
Yeah. Well, and all
Margaret
that, all
Thatcher
that,
and
yes, exactly,
Ronald Reagan
and
screwing our economy
all
with
that
their
kind of,
trickle down economy.
yeah, all of that, and even I was railing against free trade agreement, and I'm like I probably think that was probably good, but maybe not wanted for the right reasons. I don't know,
And maybe it could have been better if we didn't have it and had something else. It
yeah,
wasn't just
maybe there's
pushed
a
through.
hybrid system that could have been better because ultimately we sold our resources. The U.S., basically kept the capital, and Mexico had the labor, right? But we're not developing any of those things now, But it's fine in a world where you all rely on that. So if somebody's more efficient with it, then it's better, and you create the economy that can work. But what ends up happening again, because history repeats itself, you get isolationism, which is happening now. You increasing more of these countries are just like, no, I'm going to do this, and you get tariffs, and that doesn't work. The whole system breaks down, and we end up where we are, end stage capitalism. But you know what's not going to end? It's good food.
Good food.
Because we're going to make sure that good food, and we need better food too. So, we need. I'm going to just share this as we wrap up.
Sure.
Is so Yan, who's been in France 2 years, just over 2 years, maybe his third year. Anyway, feels like he's been gone forever. So he took a bunch of blood tests and went to the doctor when he first arrived.
Right.
So he had all his enzymes and all his blood work and all that kind of stuff analyzed or whatever. And the doctor's like, oh yeah, this is good, this is bad or whatever. 2 years later, he hasn't done anything. He's actually probably drinking more because wine is very cheap there. So, and he's like, oh, he's worried about his liver. And he's like, oh, my liver, this, because, he's not like an alcoholic or anything like that, but, he has glasses of wine.
Well, he's French now.
He's French. Yeah, well, he's always been
He's
French.
always been French.
Yeah. And he's always had the wine thing, but his blood work was like so much better 2 years later. And his liver enzymes were like way better than they were when he first got there. And the doctor said, yeah, because of the food you're eating.
It's real.
It's real.
Real butter.
And especially with
wine.
the bread. Like we've engineered like all the wheat and all this kind of like engineering that we've
all
done.
That Monsanto bull.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. And the corn and all this kind of stuff for yield and like the food and that's why, and then the US is saying, you got to import our food to Europe, and Europe's like, no chance,
way.
man. You're poisoning your own people, for profit. And so that was kind of alarming.
Well, there's a good argument that the whole wheat intolerance that's sweeping the nations is more about the glyphosate that they're spraying on the wheat than the wheat itself. Because people who are insensitive to it here, they go to Italy and have pizza, they're fine.
Yeah, 100%.
They eat bread all the time and they're fine.
Well, and it's with all those chemicals and pesticides because they then use another chemical to clean it,
right,
to wash it off, and you're like,
it's not better.
Wait a minute. So then what's killing you? The chemicals to increase the yield, or the chemicals that you need to clean off that chemical?
Yeah.
Right?
Why don't you just grow it better to begin with? You don't have to spray it.
Well, I watched this awesome documentary, interesting documentary. Like, it was awesome. Ken Burns documentary on the American buffalo.
Oh.
And it was funny because right after that, I watched a documentary. It's not by Ken Burns, but it was Atomic People. And it was survivors of the Nagasaki and Hiroshima and what they've done and that through that whole thing. And I'm like, it's hard to be pro-American when you watch those back to back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just what they did to the buffalo. But that's kind of the beginning of a lack of appreciation for their food supply and food systems. Yeah. So there is something like 6 or 7 million buffalo on the plains. Like, we're talking, and within like an 80-year period, there was like 400. Right.
And they were the ones who kept the prairies fresh and rejuvenated.
Well, it was just grass, and they, and you think of the carbon effect of it and the food cycle. So there was enough buffalo, and I don't know, we're going to make up some numbers here, but 6 or 7 million buffalo roaming, if managed correctly, could have literally fed that whole population forever. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, rather than, and what ended up happening is these pelt hunters would come in just for pelt, and they'd leave the meat to rot. So the natives would start their hunt, and they would go to where the buffalo were, and they were all wiped out. Like thousands are just dead, shot, skinned.
Driving them off cliffs.
Yeah, and they just let the meat rot. And they could have. I mean, it's about sustainable farming, basically, right? And sustainability of these resources that even now, so they were almost extinct at the end of the 1800s, like 1880, 1890. There was maybe even before that. And then these indigenous people had private stock, and these other people that, for whatever reason they're doing it, maybe they're doing it for profit or just whatever, but they maintain these buffalo herds, like small and grow. I think at the end of the documentary, so this might have been taking us to modern day. There's something like, 400 or 500 or 600,000 buffalo from 6 million, and this is 100 years later,
Still
or
not
longer,
much.
like basically 100 years of management, of buffalo management, and they're still just a fraction of what they were back in the day.
I heard that because the buffalo, like 6 to 8 million buffalo, produce a lot of fertilizer, right?
Yeah.
And they control the prairie growth. They're an integral part of the cycle of the prairies.
Yeah.
You get rid of all the buffalo, the prairies dry up because there's no nutrients for them. You get a dust bowl, and then you have no food, and then you have a Great Depression.
Yeah, exactly. And they can't feed people.
Yeah. And people starve.
Yeah, people starve. And the climate impact of that, because all of that, those fields then become wheat.
That you have to constantly feed with chemicals now because there's no more buffalo.
Well, the soil,
to
the wheat,
fertilize it.
Wheat is not a carbon capture. So the soil's a carbon capture, and the way the grass that you're growing, grass basically as it grows, it is sucking carbon, right?
Right.
So it's capturing carbon. So the cow, eats it, and then it grows again. It's sucking more carbon, and the cow's shitting in the field is what provides the nutrients for the soil.
Yeah, that's
which makes
the
it soil rich.
nitrogen.
Yeah, but you put wheat there, and it's gone. The cycle's gone. So, think about proper farming, and then people are like, "Oh, stop eating meat," and it's like, that's the wrong idea, man.
Yeah,
Let's start.
Maybe eat less meat or balance your meat, or
sure. I mean,
always buy quality meat.
Well, buy quality meat, but why would you not shift it to like conscientious farming, regenerative farming, where you're actually, giving back as much as you're taking on with it and recreating what was around. I mean, those days, just pure mass and production, it's, but stopping, Alberta's a great example. A lot of the cattle in Alberta is free range.
Yeah.
Because that's how they feed themselves. I'm sure there's ones that aren't and whatever, but when you can have free range, then you're actually, they're eating grass, right? And they're regenerating the soil, and they're doing it right.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway.
Well, at Cook's Camp, I see that there's going to be a lot of talk about food sustainability, and I'm sure these topics are going to be discussed at length.
Well, I'm excited. So I'm going to just quickly, as we wrap up, this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing wild foraging with Paul Moran.
Yes.
Guided tour of North Arm Farm is where it's being hosted. We're having a Filipino welcome lunch, butchery and fabrication demonstration. Interesting.
That sounds
Brody
really
White and the Nasty Bits. I don't know if that's music, or I don't know who Brody White is, but I can't wait. Farming and food security, so important.
Yeah.
So food security. We've got some social time, cultural dinner. We're having Italian, close to my heart. Food Day Canada presentation. That'll be interesting. And then a social time. And then the next day we've got breakfast. Bluefin Tuna Butchery.
That's going to be amazing.
Think about this. This is like how cool that we're going to be able to experience this stuff.
Right.
Wild foraging, again, with Paul Moran. Media training. Hey, we could use a little bit of that.
What do you mean? We're perfect out here.
The Great Alignment, which is basically what we're talking about, what the Bread and Butter Collective's about, with the, Chef's Table Society's about. All that is trying to make sure that in 50 years we've got sustainable agriculture. We've got food. We've got, our industry is there.
You got people to work it.
Exactly. We got people to work it. Real leadership for real kitchens.
Oh, I didn't see that one.
Yeah,
that'd be interesting.
I'm interested in that.
Yeah.
We've got a keynote speaker, and I cannot pronounce Jared Williams. Basics of wine pairing, art of dry aging, which you're really pumped about.
I'm so stoked on that one.
And then we're having the Canada's largest family meal.
Canada's largest family meal?
Yeah. So
Wow.
I don't know what that means, but we're going to be doing that.
I guess we're all family after the weekend.
And then we got breakfast, and then we'll be heading out. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm pumped. Hopefully this will be the first of many years that we go and participate.
Yeah, and hopefully we can get some good interviews, kind of Johnny on the spot.
Yeah, we're going to do next week. We're going to do some try to do some live podcasting. We've got some technology here at Czech Studios that we're going to maybe deploy. Most likely we're going to screw it up, but you know what? That'll be funny too.
But at least we'll be able to come back and tell stories about the interviews we wanted to do.
That's right. So next week's show will be
not
live to some degree. Maybe we may not be able to do it live, but we're gonna put something together. But it won't be in the studio because we're gonna be at Cook's Camp. You and me. Buddy.
I can't wait. A road trip together.
Road trip.
We're taking this shit on the road.
I know.
I mean, the stuff on the road.
I wonder what people are gonna. I don't know.
I can't wait. I can't wait to hang out with you outside of this.
I know it's gonna be good.
Go experience the mainland together.
Oh no!
And the mountains and the valleys. It's gonna be so pretty.
I know our wives are gonna be worried about us.
No.
Well, my wife's not gonna be worried about me.
I don't think my wife will worry. She trusts me.
Yeah.
What kind of scotch do you like? Or do you like whiskey?
I do like. Oh yes, that's a great idea.
Because what kind do you like?
I love. Well, I mean, name it. I love it.
Wild turkey.
No. Well, that's bourbon.
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll. Do you like singles or blends or?
Listen, I've got so much. I think I know where you're going with this.
Yeah.
I've got so much scotch because I've cut back on my drinking a lot in the last decade. I'm gonna bring a couple and then we're gonna sample it. I've got if I don't bring something,
it's just gonna sit.
It's just gonna sit.
Well, it's like vodka. Once you open it, it goes bad real quick.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
You have to drink it pretty quickly.
So we're gonna have some fun.
Okay, sounds fun.
High five.
Well, in the meantime, that was a nice chat.
It was a great chat.
I learned lots actually in that.
Anarchist or whatever, but all of our chats kind of flow.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's like from the listeners or the viewers' perspective, but.
Well, it's interesting when you go through the statistic, you can see the first 15 seconds, you get lots of views and then nothing.
Yeah. Perfect. So our intro's got to be fire.
It's always fire.
Yeah, it's always fire. Well, thank you, Sam.
Right. Yeah, thanks, Neil.
Appreciate it. Looking forward to our trip. And be real kind.
I will. You be nice.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bread and Butter Collective's membership includes the following local businesses: 2% Jazz, Bunny's Kitchen, Buzz Coffee House, Eagle-Ite, Big Wheel Burger, Blue Mountain Solutions, Bodega Tapas Wine Bar, Eva Schnitzel House, Farmsgate Foods and Catering, Victoria Chocolate and Company, Drum Roaster Coffee, Habit Coffee, Foo Asian Street Food, the Culinary Arts Program at Camosun, Cafe Fantastico, Fall Epi, Harold Street Brewworks, Hey Happy, House of Botang, Nikkei Ramen Ya, Jenny Marie's Cracker Company, La Pasta, La Rue Patisserie, Mocha House, Part and Parcel, Poco a Pinto Bar, Pizzeria Prima Strada, Keating Pizza, Roast, Table 9 Consulting, Sherwood Cafe and Bar, Sweets by Selena, The Collective Wine Bar and Kitchen, The Drake, Tapa Bar, The Nimble Bar Company, Ruth and Dean, The Whole Beast, The Wienery, Spoon's Diner, Truffles-Inspired Catering, and Zambries.
To hear more from the Bread and Butter Collective, go to checknews.ca/podcasts on Check Plus, or find us on your favorite podcasting platform.